This year marks a 25-year journey of Jim Kearns with Easter Seals. He's a volunteer who is unwavering in his dedication of time, talents, and resources when it comes to Easter Seals. Mr. Kearns, a former executive vice president of the DuPont Company, utilized his incredible marketing and business savvy to ensure the successful growth of Easter Seals Delaware and Maryland's Eastern Shore from a $3 million entity to the $22 million organization it is today, serving nearly 25,000 people with disabilities and their families. Mr. Kearns began his involvement with Easter Seals in the late 1980s.
From time to time, people have asked me how I got involved with Easter Seals. And the answer is pretty simple. Sandy Tuttle asked me. One day, Sandy and the then current chairman of the board, along with a mutual friend, came into my office and proceeded to talk to me and tell me about Easter Seals. And I admit, I knew very little about Easter Seals at that time. As the conversation went on, they talked about a capital campaign they wanted to mount, and they asked me if I would chair that campaign. As I reflected on it as they continued to talk in the meeting, I thought to myself that probably it was time for me to give something back. And so before the meeting ended, I said yes. That was the beginning.
Sometimes I reflect back on that meeting with Jim, and it was like the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy and I guess the lion going to ask the Wizard of Oz if he would help us, and he did. He did make us come back a second time. Jim said yes, and off we went with a campaign chairman.
He was a bit of a legend in the business community and the community overall here in the Wilmington area. So, it was a little bit intimidating because Jim had a reputation. And I have to say that he certainly lived up to that reputation. He was somebody who had kind of a gruff exterior. He really would tell it like it is. I have to say that it did not take long before you realize that underneath that sort of gruff exterior beat a heart of gold. I mean, he is just, one of the most incredibly generous people I have ever met. And he has the best of intentions all the time.
I've known Jim for over 40 years. Most of that time was at DuPont. One of the cultures at DuPont is to help people in the community, engage with the community. And I think Jim has just done a fantastic job helping Easter Seals to grow from a small organization to one that's a real powerhouse of services for the community. You may wonder, how he does this. It's no surprise to me if you look at his culture. Jim's a family guy, and family is most important to him, and I think he adopted Easter Seals to be part of his family. He's tenacious when it comes to getting results. He's a people and a team builder, and very importantly, he drives a culture of change in an organization, which is really very important if you're going to continue to improve and to win in whatever you're doing. And finally, he's really a nice guy and he's fun to work with.
Really, you talk about leading by example. You knew Jim was going to carry the ball for the whole thing. He not only wrote the biggest check personally, but he went to all of his friends, starting at the top of DuPont, the foundations, everybody. And he didn't hesitate to tell the story. He called it God's work, for the people who, have been less fortunate in life, and their families have been less fortunate. And Jim dealt with this personally, and he just understood it in some ways more than many of us could ever really understand it.
I've been on the board for, about 35 years. And I would say that of all the people that have contributed in so many different ways to this organization, you can point to Jim as probably the one who, on a personal level, has done more to move the organization to the level it's gotten to today. So I think, the legacy that Jim leaves is the quality of this organization, the number of people that it serves, the way that it goes about its business on a daily basis. He really provided that additional spark of leadership that motivated other people in ways they didn't even realize they were being motivated.
Thank you, Mr. Kearns. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kearns, for being so nice to me, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearns.
Thank you, Mr. Kearns.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, thank you for your support. Thank you.
I sit back and think about Easter seals almost every day. I have become very deeply committed and dedicated to the Easter Seals organization and what they do to help the disabled. I'll treasure it the rest of my life.